In the heart of the tranquil suburbs of Savannah, Georgia, where cobblestone pathways wove through neighborhoods of grand oak trees and charming colonial-style homes, Olivia Hartley's life had permanently moved to a predictable rhythm. Each morning, she woke before the sun, the aroma of freshly brewed coffee mingling with the soft hum of her home. She would prepare breakfast for her children, Isabella, 10, and Samuel, 7, ensuring their uniforms were neatly pressed and backpacks packed for the day ahead. Her husband, Jonathan, a successful architect, would sip his coffee while skimming through blueprints at the dining table. Their world seemed idyllic, orderly, secure, and untouched by chaos. But the unexpected can slip through the cracks even in the calmest lives. That Thursday morning, as Olivia folded laundry in their sunlit living room, her fingers brushed against a foreign object in Jonathan's suit pocket. A glossy, embossed receipt slid out, the kind she didn't recognize. The words La Belle Époque stared back at her, a five-star restaurant downtown she'd only dreamed of visiting. Her eyes lingered on the date. Last Friday, a night Jonathan had claimed to be working late on a high-profile project. A single piece of paper, so ordinary and innocuous, ignited a ripple in Olivia's seemingly perfect life. Questions whispered in the corners of her mind, growing louder with each passing second. Why hadn't he mentioned this? Who had he been dining with? She tried to shake off the unease, reasoning that it could be work-related, perhaps a client dinner. Yet, deep down, a quiet voice urged her not to dismiss it so quickly. The rest of the day passed in a blur of chores and errands, yet Olivia couldn't ignore the growing knot in her stomach. As she prepared dinner that evening, her hands moved on autopilot, chopping vegetables and stirring sauces while her mind circled the possibilities. Jonathan arrived home as usual, kissing her cheek quickly before joining the kids at the table. His demeanor was warm and charming, but something about his easygoing nature felt off, almost rehearsed. By the time Olivia tucked Isabella and Samuel into bed, the questions in her mind had transformed into a storm of doubt. She was back in the living room, staring at the receipt now resting on the coffee table. The pristine paper seemed to mock her, a tangible reminder of how fragile her sense of normalcy had become. How could one tiny slip of paper hold the power to unravel a life meticulously built over 15 years? Olivia couldn't know it yet, but this receipt was just the beginning. A small crack in the foundation of her marriage, a harbinger of deeper truths waiting to surface. As the quiet of the evening settled around her, she resolved to find out what lay hidden beneath the surface of her seemingly perfect life. What she would uncover, however, would force her to confront not only Jonathan's secrets but her strength, resilience, and the long-forgotten dreams she had buried beneath the weight of being everything to everyone else. The following morning dawned heavy with an unshakable tension. Olivia moved through her routine with mechanical precision, her mind whirling with questions she couldn't yet bring herself to voice. Jonathan left for work in his usual crisp suit, offering a quick kiss and a familiar, "I'll be home late. Don't wait up." The words, once so ordinary, now echoed with a dissonance Olivia couldn't ignore. Later that day, as she tidied the bedroom, Olivia's curiosity overtook her caution. She approached Jonathan's closet, a sanctuary she rarely touched. His suits hung in immaculate rows, each tailored to perfection. Her fingers brushed against the fabric as she reached into the pockets, her heart pounding with guilt and determination. She found it there, another receipt, folded carefully, tucked away. This one was from Bellamy Jewelers, dated just 2 weeks prior. It was for a necklace, a piece she had never seen. Yet the price was unforgettable. The room spun around her as the implications became impossible to dismiss. Olivia sat heavily on the bed, clutching the receipt like it was a lifeline to the truth. The logical part of her mind whispered excuses. An anniversary gift, perhaps? A surprise for Isabella's upcoming birthday? But her heart, weighed down by intuition, told a different story. Later that afternoon, as she drove Samuel to soccer practice and Isabella to her piano lesson, Olivia's hands gripped the steering wheel tighter than usual. The children's cheerful chatter barely registered. She managed a few distracted smiles and nods, but her mind was miles away, navigating the labyrinth of possibilities. She promised herself she wouldn't jump to conclusions, yet the mounting evidence painted a picture she couldn't ignore. That evening, after tucking the kids into bed, Olivia returned to the living room where the receipts now sat side by side. The restaurant, the jewelry, the mounting questions. She knew Jonathan wouldn't be home for hours. His late nights had become frequent over the past 6 months. Determined to find answers, Olivia powered up their shared laptop. It took mere moments to uncover what she hadn't wanted to see. Their joint bank account, once a reflection of shared goals and dreams, now revealed a string of transactions that didn't fit. Luxury boutiques, high-end restaurants, hotel charges. The places were ones Olivia had never been, and their prices were absurd for business expenses. Her breath caught in her throat as her suspicions began to harden into certainty. Olivia closed the laptop slowly, her fingers trembling. She wanted to cry, to scream, to throw something, anything to release the turmoil raging inside her. Instead, she sat quietly in the dark, gripping the edge of the dining table as tears slid silently down her face. The world she had so carefully built, the trust she had held onto for 15 years, felt like it was slipping through her fingers. Yet even amidst the despair, a seed of resolve began to take root. She would not confront him in anger, nor would she let him reduce her to an emotional wreck. At that moment, Olivia decided to uncover the truth. No half measures, no blind assumptions. And when the time came, she would confront Jonathan with the grace and strength he would never expect. The following Friday, Olivia spent the day meticulously preparing. She set up her children for a weekend sleepover with her sister, ensuring their routines would remain undisturbed. She even packed Jonathan's favorite lasagna for their dinner, a calm smile masking the storm within. That evening, as the aroma of fresh-baked garlic bread filled the kitchen, Olivia heard the familiar sound of his car pulling into the driveway. Jonathan walked in, greeting her with his usual charm. "Smells amazing," he said, leaning in for a kiss. Olivia turned slightly, letting his lips brush her cheek instead. He didn't notice, his attention on the dinner table set perfectly for two. The meal was quiet, with small talk about work and the kids. Olivia played her part, nodding at all the right moments, though her appetite was non-existent. When Jonathan finally pushed back his chair, signaling the end of dinner, Olivia made her move. "Jonathan," she began, her voice calm but firm. "We need to talk." He looked up, a flicker of confusion in his eyes. "Sure. What's on your mind?" She reached into her pocket and pulled out the receipts, placing them on the table between them. "This is what's on my mind." For a brief second, his expression remained unreadable. Then a shadow crossed his face, and he leaned back in his chair, arms folding defensively across his chest. "Olivia, I can explain." She raised a hand, stopping him mid-sentence. "Don't. I've seen the bank statements. I've seen enough. What I want from you now is the truth." Jonathan's face tightened, and for a moment, Olivia thought he might deny it. But then, his shoulders slumped, and he let out a long, defeated sigh. "I didn't want you to find out this way." The admission was like a physical blow, but Olivia held herself steady. "How long?" she asked, her voice trembling despite her best efforts. 6 months, he admitted, his eyes avoiding hers. "Her name is Rebecca. It wasn't supposed to happen, Olivia. It just did." "It just did?" she echoed, her voice rising slightly. "You're telling me you accidentally stumbled into dinners, jewelry, and hotel rooms?" "Olivia, please." Jonathan's voice was pleading now, but she couldn't hear it over the roar of her anger and heartbreak. She stood abruptly, her chair scraping against the hardwood floor. "You've betrayed not only me but also our family, Jonathan. Our children. Do you even think about them when you're with her?" Jonathan's silence was answer enough. The two stood in the dimly lit dining room for a long moment, the weight of everything left unsaid pressing down on them. Finally, Olivia spoke, her voice steady and cold. "You need to leave. Tonight. Olivia, please. Go." Her voice broke, but her resolve didn't waver. "I'll handle the rest with the lawyer." Jonathan hesitated as if searching for something to say, but in the end, he turned and left without another word. The door closing behind him echoed through the house, a quiet punctuation to the end of their life together. As the silence enveloped her, Olivia allowed herself to grieve, her tears flowing freely now. Yet even amid her sorrow, that same seed of resolve grew. She wasn't just grieving the end of her marriage. She was preparing to rebuild her life on her terms. The house was eerily quiet the following day. The laughter of her children, the hum of Jonathan's car in the driveway, the shared conversations over breakfast, all were gone. Olivia stood in the kitchen, staring at the remnants of the previous night. 2 wine glasses, one untouched, and an empty chair where Jonathan had sat. The silence felt suffocating, but Olivia knew she had to move forward. Her children returned from her sister's house later that afternoon, their voices filling the emptiness with questions and observations. "Where's Daddy?" Samuel asked as he dropped his soccer ball on the living room floor. Olivia crouched down, her heart breaking as she met her son's curious gaze. "Daddy won't be staying here for a while," she said gently, her voice calm despite the lump in her throat. "He needs some time to work on things." "Is it because of his work?" Isabella chimed in, her wide eyes searching Olivia's face for reassurance. Olivia forced a smile and smoothed her daughter's hair. "Yes, sweetheart. But we're going to be okay. I promise." The promise felt hollow, but Olivia was determined to make it accurate. She spent the rest of the day keeping busy, unpacking the kids' bags, organizing the house, and tackling chores. Every task was a distraction to keep her mind from spiraling into despair. Yet, as the sun set and her children drifted off to sleep, the weight of her new reality pressed down on her. She found herself in the dim light of her bedroom, staring at her laptop. For months, she had buried the desire to reclaim the dreams she had set aside after marrying Jonathan. Her degree in interior design had once filled her with excitement, but life, marriage, and motherhood had taken precedence. Now, with the silence of the house around her and her husband's absence a painful reminder, she opened her university's website. The application page stared back at her. Her cursor hovered over the Apply Now button momentarily. Doubts crept in. How could she juggle school, her children, and the financial strain Jonathan's departure had left behind? But then she remembered the resolve she had felt the night before. She clicked the button, and a sense of purpose washed over her. This was her first step toward reclaiming herself. The weeks that followed were a whirlwind of adjustments. Olivia juggled her responsibilities with meticulous precision, though the cracks in her carefully constructed life often showed. Mornings were spent getting Isabella and Samuel ready for school, followed by part-time shifts as a receptionist at a local design firm, a job she had taken to cover expenses. Afternoons were consumed with grocery shopping, parent-teacher conferences, and helping the kids with their homework. Evenings were her time, filled with textbooks, research, and late-night cups of coffee as she tackled her online classes. Yet, the challenges were relentless. One morning, Samuel woke up with a fever, his small face pale and his body weak. Olivia spent hours by his side, cooling his forehead with a damp cloth and reassuring Isabella that her little brother would be fine. That same day, her professor emailed her about a missed assignment, her boss called to discuss an urgent client project, and the electricity bill arrived, a reminder of her financial strain. When Jonathan called that evening to discuss custody arrangements, Olivia was already on edge. His voice carried a tone of concern, but it felt disingenuous. "Olivia, I heard from Isabella that you've been taking classes. Are you sure that's a good idea right now?" Her hand tightened around the phone. "Why wouldn't it be?" "Because the kids need stability. They need you to be present, not stretched thin by school." Olivia's voice remained calm, though anger simmered beneath the surface. "They need a mother who shows them that life doesn't end when things fall apart. They need to see that it's okay to rebuild, even when it's hard." Jonathan sighed, but Olivia cut him off before he could respond. "I've got this, Jonathan. You made your choices. Let me make mine." The conversation left her drained, but it also solidified her resolve. That night, as she sat at the dining table surrounded by bills and textbooks, her phone buzzed with an email. Lucas Bryant, the managing director at her firm, had sent her a message praising her attention to detail on a recent project. Attached was a link to a job opening in their operations department, a position offering flexible hours and tuition assistance. Her heart raced as she read the email. Could she take on more? The thought of stepping into a higher role was both exhilarating and terrifying. Yet, as she looked around at the chaos of her life, Olivia realized she had been terrified every day since Jonathan left, and she was still standing. She drafted a response to Lucas that night, expressing her interest in the position. When she hit send, it felt like another step forward, another choice to reclaim her future. The reinvention challenges were relentless, but Olivia began to see they were also necessary. With every obstacle, she discovered a strength she hadn't known she possessed, one that would carry her through the storms yet to come. Olivia's decision to apply for the operations department role marked a turning point in her life. Days after sending her email, Lucas Bryan invited her for an informal meeting. The firm's modern office was bustling with activity as Olivia stepped in, her nerves coiled tightly. She wore her best blazer, a thrift store find she had tailored to fit perfectly, and clutched a notebook filled with ideas she'd been too shy to share before. Lucas greeted her warmly, his demeanor professional yet approachable. "Olivia, I've been impressed with your work since day one," he began, gesturing for her to sit. "Your attention to detail and ability to identify inefficiencies are exactly what we need in this new role." His words filled her with a mix of pride and disbelief. Could someone like her, a single mother trying to hold her life together, take on such a significant position? She voiced her concern cautiously. "I don't have a degree yet, Lucas. I'm still in the process of finishing my education." Lucas leaned forward, his gaze steady. Experience and natural insight often outweigh formal qualifications. Besides, the firm offers tuition assistance for employees. This role would allow you to continue your studies while gaining practical experience. The offer seemed too good to be accurate, but Olivia knew it came with challenges. Flexible hours didn't mean fewer responsibilities, and the weight of balancing a higher role with motherhood and school loomed large. Yet, as Lucas detailed the position's expectations, Olivia felt excited. For the first time in years, she envisioned a version of herself thriving professionally, something she hadn't dared to dream of since leaving college for marriage. By the end of the meeting, she had accepted the role. The next few weeks were a whirlwind of onboarding and training. Olivia immersed herself in spreadsheets, workflow analyses, and team meetings. Once confined to the margins of her notebook, her ideas now found an audience. She proposed changes to documentation processes, streamlined client reports, and introduced more efficient project management systems. Slowly but surely, her confidence grew. Her children adjusted to the changes, though not without challenges. Isabella, always perceptive, asked one night during dinner, "Mom, why are you always so busy now? You used to help me with my homework." Olivia knelt beside her daughter, meeting her inquisitive gaze. "I'm still here for you, sweetheart. I'm just working hard to make sure we have a better future. But your homework is still my favorite part of the day, okay?" Balancing her children's needs with her new role became intricate, but Olivia refused to falter. She carved out sacred moments, movie nights with Samuel and baking sessions with Isabella, to remind her children that her love for them remained constant amidst the chaos. One late evening, after putting the kids to bed, Olivia reflected on her progress. She wasn't just surviving anymore. She was building something new, something more substantial. One evening, as Olivia stayed late to finalize a quarterly report, she heard a familiar voice behind her. "Burning the midnight oil again?" Lucas stood in the doorway, a coffee cup in each hand. Once strictly professional, his presence had begun to carry a warmth that Olivia couldn't ignore. She smiled, accepting the coffee he offered. "Just trying to prove I belong here," she replied, half joking. "You've already done that," Lucas said, his tone serious. "You're one of the best hires this year." The compliment sent a rush of pride through her, but his following words caught her off guard. "Olivia, I wanted to ask, how are you holding up? Outside of work, I mean." The question disarmed her. In the months since Jonathan's departure, no one had asked her that so directly. "It's a lot," she admitted after a pause. "Between the kids, school, and work, I barely have time to think." Lucas nodded, his expression empathetic. "If anyone can handle it, it's you. But remember, it's okay to lean on people when necessary." His words lingered with Olivia long after he left. Over the following weeks, Their conversations grew more personal. They talked about everything, from their childhoods to their favorite books. During breaks and late nights at the office, Lucas shared stories of his nephew, whom he often cared for after his sister's divorce, and Olivia opened up about the struggles of rebuilding her life as a single mother. Their connection deepened further during a company-sponsored charity event. Lucas had invited Olivia to help organize it, and the hours they spent working side by side were filled with laughter and shared ideas. As Olivia navigated the crowd with poise at the event itself, Lucas admired her. "Olivia," he said quietly when they found themselves alone on the terrace, overlooking the city lights. "You're remarkable. You know that?" She felt a blush rise to her cheeks. "I'm just doing my best," she replied, though her voice wavered slightly under his gaze. "You're doing far more than that," Lucas insisted. "And I hope you know how much I respect you, for your strength, resilience, and care for everyone around you." At that moment, Olivia felt seen in a way she hadn't in years. Lucas wasn't just acknowledging her efforts, he was acknowledging her. The walls she had built around her heart began to crumble, though she wasn't ready to let them fall entirely. "Lucas," she said softly, "I'm not sure I'm ready for anything more right now. My kids, my life. It's all so complicated." "I understand," he replied, his voice steady. "But just so you know, I'm here. For whatever you need, whenever you're ready." Their bond remained unspoken yet undeniable, an undercurrent in their daily interactions. Olivia found herself smiling more, laughing more, and, for the first time in a long while, looking forward to what the future might hold, not just for her career but for her heart. Months passed, and Olivia settled into her role at the company with growing confidence. Her contributions were recognized in meetings, and her ability to navigate complex challenges earned her respect among colleagues. Yet, as her professional life soared, her personal life faced an unwelcome interruption. Jonathan. It was a Saturday morning, and Olivia savored a rare quiet moment as her children played in the backyard. The knock on the door startled her. She opened it to find Jonathan standing there, looking as though he had aged years in just months. His tailored suit was slightly wrinkled, his eyes shadowed with exhaustion. "Olivia," he began, his voice hesitant. "Can we talk?" She crossed her arms, blocking the doorway. "What could we possibly have to talk about?" Jonathan sighed, running a hand through his disheveled hair. "I've made mistakes. Big ones. I see that now." Her patience wore thin instantly. "You're here to tell me this now? After everything you put me through? After months of watching me and our children struggle while you started a new life with her?" He flinched at her words but pressed on. "Victoria left. She took the baby and moved back to New York. I didn't realize how much I'd thrown away until I lost everything." Olivia's lips tightened, anger and disbelief warring within her. "So, you're here because she left you, not because you regret what you did to me or our children." "It's not like that," he protested. "I miss us, Olivia. I miss the family we had. Can't we try again? For the kids?" She shook her head, her resolve firm. "The family you miss is the one you abandoned. You made your choices, Jonathan, and I've made mine. We're not your backup plan. You don't get to waltz back in and pick up where you left off." His face fell, but Olivia felt no sympathy. "Our children deserve stability, and I've worked too hard to give them that. You'll remain part of their lives because they love you, but I won't let you disrupt what I've built." Jonathan stood in silence, his shoulders slumped in defeat. Finally, he nodded and left, his retreat marked by the sound of his car engine fading into the distance. Olivia closed the door, leaning against it momentarily as she steadied herself. This confrontation, though painful, felt like a final chapter closing. For the first time, she felt a sense of closure with Jonathan, a freedom to focus on the life she was creating without the weight of the past dragging her down. Olivia faced another challenge the following week from within the workplace. Richard Calloway, a senior executive at the company, had taken issue with Olivia's recent proposal to overhaul a key operational system. During a tense meeting, he questioned her qualifications before the entire board. "How does someone with no formal degree and minimal experience in management presume to dictate changes at this level?" he asked, his tone sharp. The room fell silent, all eyes turning to Olivia. She felt the sting of his words, but refused to let them shake her. Drawing a deep breath, she stood and addressed the room calmly. "Mr. Calloway," she began, her voice steady, "systems aren't improved by titles or years of experience alone. They're improved by insight, analysis, and the willingness to question inefficiencies. My proposal is based on months of research and data that support its benefits. I may not have the traditional credentials you're accustomed to, but I have results." Her response was met with a mix of surprised nods and murmured approval. Even Lucas, seated at the head of the table, gave her a small, encouraging smile. Calloway's challenge had only underscored her determination to prove her worth. As she left the office that evening, Lucas caught up with her in the parking lot. "You handled yourself brilliantly in there," he said, admiration clear in his tone. Olivia smiled, though exhaustion tugged at her. "Thank you. But I can't help wondering how many moments I'll have to prove myself." Lucas looked at her with quiet intensity. "As often as it takes for people to see what I already know, that you're exceptional." Their conversation lingered with her as she drove home. For the first time, she began to see herself through the eyes of someone who believed in her completely, not just as a professional but as a person capable of great things. After putting Isabella and Samuel to bed that night, Olivia sat at the kitchen table, surrounded by bills and her latest school assignment. Her phone buzzed with a message from Lucas. "Dinner this weekend? Just you and me." She hesitated, her fingers hovering over the keyboard. The idea of stepping further into a relationship, of letting someone in after the pain Jonathan had caused, both excited and terrified her. But as she looked around her home, the clean, warm space she had worked so hard to maintain, she realized she had built a strong foundation to support more than survival. She had built a life. Her reply was simple: "I'd love to." As she hit send, Olivia felt something shift inside her. It wasn't just about Lucas. It was about choosing herself, choosing happiness, growth, and the possibility of something more. Months later, Olivia stood in the company's grand conference room, preparing for one of the most critical moments of her career. She had been tasked with presenting her analysis on workflow inefficiencies to the board, a culmination of months of painstaking research and late nights. The stakes were higher than ever, as this presentation would determine the future implementation of her proposed systems. As she adjusted her blazer and smoothed the pages of her notes, Lucas entered the room. His presence was steadying, his encouraging smile giving her confidence. "You've got this," he said simply, his tone calm but firm. The board members trickled in, including Richard Calloway, who had continued to be a vocal critic of her work. His presence didn't intimidate Olivia anymore. She had prepared for every possible question and wasn't about to let his skepticism diminish her accomplishments. As the meeting began, Olivia launched into her presentation with measured poise. She detailed the inefficiencies she had identified, backed by data and real-world examples, and outlined her proposed solutions with clarity and precision. Charts and graphs illuminated the screen behind her, each point meticulously prepared to address potential objections. Calloway interrupted midway through, his tone laced with condescension. "This all sounds great on paper, but what about the actual cost of implementing these changes? Have you considered the potential disruption to our existing systems?" Olivia met his gaze, unwavering. "Yes, Mr. Calloway, I've accounted for both. The short-term costs are detailed in Slide 8, but if you refer to Slide 9, you'll see that the long-term savings outweigh those costs by a significant margin. Additionally, the implementation plan I've designed minimizes disruption by phasing changes over 6 months." Her response silenced him, and the energy in the room shifted as she continued. By the time she finished, the board members nodded in agreement, their questions turning into genuine curiosity about how quickly her proposals could be implemented. When the vote was called, Olivia's plan was approved unanimously. The room erupted in polite applause, and Lucas caught her eye, his expression filled with pride. Even Calloway, albeit grudgingly, acknowledged her success. After the meeting, Lucas approached her privately. "That was incredible," he said, his voice filled with admiration. "You didn't just prove yourself. You raised the bar for everyone in that room." Olivia smiled, feeling a mix of pride and relief. "I couldn't have done it without your support," she admitted. Lucas shook his head. You've always had it in you, Olivia. I just helped you see it. That evening, Olivia returned home to find Isabella and Samuel waiting for her with handmade congratulations cards. Isabella's was decorated with glitter and red. "Mom, you're the best boss ever." Samuel's was more straightforward, but no less heartfelt. "You're my hero, Mom." Olivia felt a deep sense of fulfillment as she hugged her children tightly. They were her anchor, her reason for pushing through every challenge, and seeing their pride in her was worth every sleepless night. Later, after the kids were asleep, she sat on the porch with Lucas, who had joined them for a quiet family dinner. The night air was crisp, carrying the faint scent of autumn leaves, and the stars above seemed brighter than usual. Olivia sipped her tea, her thoughts drifting to the path she had taken to get here. "I never thought I'd feel this way again," she confessed, her voice soft, confident, capable, like I'm finally in control of my life. Lucas reached for her hand, his touch gentle but grounding. "You've earned every bit of this, Olivia, and it's just the beginning." She turned to him, her heart racing. "Lucas, I've been holding back because I was afraid. Afraid of opening up, of letting myself feel this. But you've been patient, and you've been kind. And now, I think I'm ready to let you in." A warm smile spread, and he laced his fingers with hers. "I've been waiting for you to say that." The moment felt monumental, not because it marked the start of something new, but because it signified Olivia's reclamation of her happiness and ability to trust again. For the first time in years, she wasn't just surviving, she was thriving. As she prepared breakfast for Isabella and Samuel the following day, her phone buzzed with an unexpected message. It was from Jonathan. "I'd like to meet and discuss some things. Please let me know when you're available." Olivia stared at the screen, a mix of emotions swirling within her. She knew the discussion would be necessary, but felt no fear this time. Her past with Jonathan no longer held the power to derail her. She had built something more substantial and enduring. She wouldn't let anyone take that from her. With a calm resolve, she set her phone aside and joined her children at the table. Whatever the future held, Olivia was ready to face it on her terms. The following week, Olivia met Jonathan at a neutral, quiet cafe in town. It was their first face-to-face conversation since his failed attempt to reconcile months earlier. She arrived early, her outfit carefully chosen to reflect the strength she now felt, crisp, professional, and confident. When Jonathan walked in, she noticed his subtle changes, a weariness in his eyes and a hesitation in his steps. He wasn't the self-assured man who had left their lives a year ago. "Thanks for meeting me," Jonathan said as he sat across from her, his voice softer than she remembered. "I figured it was time," Olivia replied evenly, keeping her emotions in check. "What's on your mind?" Jonathan sighed, running a hand through his hair. "I wanted to apologize. For everything. For how I left. For what I put you and the kids through. I thought I was chasing happiness, but all I did was destroy the life we built together." Olivia's gaze remained steady. "You're right. You did destroy it. And I've spent the last year rebuilding. Not just for me, but for Isabella and Samuel." He nodded, his expression tinged with regret. "I see that. They talk about you all the time, about how strong you've been, how happy you seem. I've realized I can never undo the hurt I caused, but I want to be better. For them, at least." Olivia studied him for a moment, searching for sincerity. "Being better for them is a start, Jonathan. But it doesn't mean we'll ever return to what we were. I've moved on, and so should you. The kids deserve parents who can co-parent without resentment and put their well-being first." Jonathan's shoulders sagged, but he nodded. "You're right. I'll do whatever it takes to make this work. For them." Their conversation ended civilly, with both agreeing to focus on creating a stable, supportive environment for the children. As Olivia left the cafe, she felt a sense of closure. Jonathan's apology, while overdue, no longer held the weight it might have months ago. She had found her strength without it, and now she could move forward, free from the shadows of their shared past. The months that followed marked the beginning of a new chapter for Olivia. Her career at the firm flourished as her efficiency initiatives transformed the company's operations. She earned a promotion to Senior Operations Manager, a title that reflected her contributions and the respect she had garnered among her peers. Her relationship with Lucas deepened in ways she hadn't anticipated. No longer hesitant, Olivia allowed herself to lean wholly into their connection. Lucas became a steady presence in her life, not as a savior but as a partner who respected her independence and celebrated her victories. His bond with Isabella and Samuel grew as well. They adored him for his patience, humor, and genuine interest in their lives. One evening, after a successful quarterly review, Lucas surprised Olivia with a small, intimate dinner at her favorite restaurant. As they sipped wine and reminisced about their journey together, he reached across the table and took her hand. "Olivia," he began, his voice steady yet filled with emotion, "you've taught me what resilience looks like. You've shown me the strength to rebuild and the beauty of choosing happiness, even after heartbreak. I want to be part of your life, not just as a partner, but as someone who supports you in every way. Will you marry me?" Tears filled Olivia's eyes as she looked at the man who had become much more than she ever expected. "Yes," she whispered, her voice trembling with joy. 1,000 times, yes. Their engagement was a quiet celebration of love and resilience. Isabella and Samuel were thrilled, immediately diving into plans for the small, intimate ceremony Olivia envisioned. Professionally, Olivia continued to shine. She was invited to speak at a regional business conference, sharing her personal and professional transformation journey. Standing at the podium, she reflected on the year that had changed everything. "I once believed that strength meant holding everything together, no matter how much it hurt," she told the audience. "But I've learned that true strength comes from letting go of what no longer serves you and building something new. It's about embracing the unknown and trusting yourself to rise, no matter how many times you fall." Her words were met with a standing ovation, but the applause wasn't what stayed with her. It was the knowledge that her story might inspire others to find their strength, just as she had. On a crisp autumn morning a year later, Olivia stood on the porch of her new home, a charming, sunlit space she and Lucas had chosen together. Isabella and Samuel played in the backyard, their laughter echoing. Inside, Lucas was preparing breakfast, the smell of coffee and pancakes wafting through the open windows. Olivia felt profound gratitude as she sipped her tea and watched her children. The journey wasn't easy, but it was worth every step. She had rebuilt her life on her terms, embracing love, success, and the strength she had discovered within herself. Her phone buzzed with a new email, an invitation to join the board of a non-profit organization focused on supporting single parents pursuing education. Smiling, Olivia saved the message to read later. She wanted to soak in the present, a life she had fought for and won. Eventually, Olivia discovered the most essential thing: how often life knocked her down. She had the power to rise again, and this time, she was soaring.